It's Spoilerin time, ladies and gentlemen. On this episode of Spoilerin time, we got some email theories about Star Wars. We got some prequel defense, actually. We're going to talk about Justified, Episode 2, Season 1, The Magicians, Episode 1, Season 1, The Expanse, all the way up through Episode 7, and Mad Dogs, Episodes 2 and 3, with special guest Romany Malco. So, Brian Brushwood, we about to get right to the movie draft, don't you think?
Yes! Congratulations, Tom. You're the big fat winner of the winter movie draft is my prediction.
No way. You're finally throwing in the towel? You've got 3 weeks left. I'm not making any money anymore.
Okay, so first of all, there's been a bit of drama in the winter movie draft. As we know, the rules are that 4 weeks or 30 days, or I forget what the rules are, but basically it's 30 days after the last movie is released is when the official end is. However, the last release is the fifth wave, got pushed back a week. So now it only just came out on January 22nd, which means the new official end of the draft is going to be on February 19th, 2016. And right now, we are neck and neck, Tom. This one is going to be down to the wire. I am in second place with $659 million, picking up 75% of Star Wars' gross. You've got $706 million with pretty much all your movies out of gas. So the question is, can 3/4 of the gross for The Force Awakens over a 3-week period bring me up this $36 million deficit in time for the ending? And I got to tell you, I'm not optimistic at this point.
It is going to go down to the wire. I think you're right. But I think Star Wars could do 13 million, 14 million a week over the next 3 weeks. We'll see. That last week may tell the tale.
Yeah.
But how cool is it that this is actually close?
Oh, sure. And you realize, and I mentioned this before, I win either way. If I win, then hooray, I won. But if I lose, then I get to rub it in Justin's face that I was right. And this was a fair and equitable way to deal with the Star Wars issue.
Now, as you may know, this week, Mad Dogs premiered on Amazon Prime Video. And Brian got through one more episode than I did. But let me tell you, I am excited about this show because I don't want to stop. I pulled away from it. It is just as good, if not better, than that first episode that we saw as the pilot so many months ago. And here to talk about it with us is star of the show, Romany Malco. Thanks for joining us, man.
Holy cow, Romany. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Tom. Good to be on. You guys know we go so far back. Brian was the introduction to Tijuana Jackson via the internet, right?
That's right.
And Tom, if I'm not mistaken, we did a broadcast not too long ago.
Yeah, you're right here on this very show.
So,
good times.
Okay, so for those who don't know, real quick, what's the elevator pitch for Mad Dogs? It's based on a British miniseries, and it takes place in Belize. You guys shot in Costa Rica, is that right, or Puerto Rico?
No. Okay, we shot in Puerto Rico. Basically, 4 guys. It's based on a British series, the original British series written by Chris Cole, who also was the executive producer and creator of the American version. 4 guys. Well, 4 guys go to who've gone to college together, but never really were that successful. Go to visit their one really successful friend, who's become somewhat of a real estate mogul in Belize. So they go there to visit him and celebrate his early retirement. Get there, realize that his success doesn't quite seem to be on the up and up. And before you know it, they witness and are framed for his murder.
So one of the things that really attracted us to this show early on was the strange, I've always been a fan of saying that questions are better than answers. And when you watch the pilot episode, what I love was the ballsy way, not knowing if there would be a complete series to ever answer these questions. The pilot just unapologetically set up scenarios where it's like, yeah, you want to know how we get here? I better hope Amazon buys the whole series. And here we are, and we're starting to get those answers. But as I watch, I love the fact that there's constantly newer and more interesting questions being set up. I find myself watching Mad Dogs with this almost ill feeling in the pit of my stomach. I can't stop watching as these people continue to walk this razor's edge of horrific consequences, and you never know which of these things are going to be a disaster and which of these things are going to be a non-issue. And the example I'm thinking of is there's that brief moment when is it Kobe is given is it Kobe is given some shaved ice, and he just throws it over his shoulder, and there's this brief pause, and you're like, oh shit, is this going to be a thing? Please don't be a thing. Please be cool. Is that something you guys talked out in advance? You guys talk about like this is the story, is this constant tension?
I think it was a tone and a sensibility of Chris Cole, the creator of the show. I think that just by nature, that's his approach to storytelling. But also, the premise within itself, right? How that plays out, these gentlemen, running for their lives, is interesting. But if you're not careful, you'll be playing on one note. So all of these nuances kind of add to the relatability of the characters, but also engage the audience in the way that you love to have the audience engage. I want you trying to predict what's next. That's, to me, when you're involved in the right kind of show. If it's too predictable, as a lot of entertainment, tends to be, even entertainment that I've been involved in, if it's too predictable, it we lose you. But right now, people are seriously hanging on. People are binge watching it. One of the best compliments you can get is, normally when you do press, you send out X amount of episodes to the people that are going to be interviewing you. And one of the biggest compliments is that every single one of them sat and binge watched every single episode that they received.
I totally believe it. So one of the things that it's amazing. I can understand. Man, is it not a compliment to say this might not be for everyone? Because I, for one, love the dripping tension from moment to moment. I feel like a moth drawn to the flame, where it's physically unpleasant for me at times to watch. And I can understand somebody saying this story is not for me. But one thing that nobody is saying is that you guys did anything less than an unbelievably stellar job with the acting. The acting is exquisite from every character from beginning to end. And I got to tell you, it's weird. Last night I was watching when I was texting you, asking you to come on the show, and it was very odd because I couldn't make you Romany Malco in that moment. It was nothing but Gus.
You were texting Gus?
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, Romany Malco was a different person to me, and it's like Gus was the guy on TV. It was extraordinary.
You were asking Romany if he could get Gus on the show?
Yeah, please.
No, man.
So what was that like? Is there something from behind the scenes that fosters that sort of commitment to the characters? Because you guys are so utterly believable in your roles.
Good question. Part of it is just circumstances, bruh. We were really, I swear to you, I feel like we were morphing into our characters more and more, because we were out in the jungle the majority of the time. We were working 6 days out of the week, 17-hour days. On the 7th day, we would travel, so we never really had a day off. The frustration was growing. But even when we were doing the pilot, we did understand that in order for this to sell, two things needed to happen. We needed to believe it ourselves.
Yeah.
And we needed to be extremely relatable. And there's no other way for me to say it other than the fact that complete and total commitment was the only way to accomplish that. The audience has become so much more sophisticated, especially now that you can find your niche specifically. If you fake it when you're servicing that niche, they're going to call you on it immediately. And for me, it's a great opportunity too, because I'm usually locked into doing comedy, right? And adult films, and so it was nice to show that I'm joking.
And
it's
that,
nice.
No. I mean, and that's one of the funny parts about this program is that there are parts that are so funny. There's awkward funny. There's kind of horrific funny. There's just great comedy timing in there. I almost have a difficult time.
I'm literally sitting on $7 million.
I mean, it's difficult. What is this? Do they list it as a comedy, as a drama? What would you call this?
Well, I would call it a farce noir, something along those lines, but it is listed as a dark comedy. And, this is the problem. I feel as though for so long we've been conditioned to believe that, comedy and drama are exclusive of one another. And in the reality of it, when you're dealing with things, especially things that are extremely horrific, some of the ways in which we find our way out of it is by making light of it, by finding humor in it. And so this particular situation, we knew that it was necessary to explore upon all that. And also, that's the whole reason that I'm involved with Amazon and doing business with Amazon, is because I wanted the opportunity to depict something that felt more honest in that way to me. And this is just something, that's the whole point. It's something you're not going to find on television. One
of the things that I noticed reflected in both the characters and the stories, and I'm only 3 episodes in at this point, is that first episode, like you say, it starts off like a comedy. It feels very light. It's like almost a buddy comedy, and then it turns dark, and it's both. It's comedy and drama, and each character is now showing that as we move in to those next episodes. So you start to see like Kobe, who's just kind of a lighthearted character who goes along, suddenly has a dark moment, and particularly you start to see him show some of his criminal talents when he's talking about transferring money. He's also on the receiving end of a deepening aspect of Joel's character when Joel knows the phone number off the top of his head for his wife's cell phone, right. and then Gus himself, who was very much like a easy breezy character, I felt like in episode 1, has become someone who is distrusted by Lex at the gate, and you as the viewer are wondering, hey, is he actually going to turn? Like you had to create a complex character in your head, it sounds like.
No, to a degree, there is a complexity in the sense that, a built-in complexity in the sense that, I showed up as Gus for peace and quiet, for a vacation. And, I have 2 beautiful daughters at home, and that I needed, I kind of needed to reconnect with my friends. And I show up, witness a murder, and end up being singled out and framed for that murder. And so the complexity to me is built into the fact that Gus wants to believe, like a lot of us, that, we follow some type of moral compass. We have some type of moral high ground. We are people of integrity. But when things get really primal and it boils down to life and death and the preservation of his family and himself, all of a sudden he starts discovering that he will stoop to levels and do things that he didn't even think he was capable of. So that in itself is an ongoing argument with this character from beginning to end. What? And to me, actually, that's interesting. That's complex, and that complexity is kind of what we kept trying to build on. At least I did, trying to build on from throughout. And so finding those moments where I would justify something that you would consider less than legitimate, less than moral. But then at the same time, the argument was a worthwhile argument.
Well, you get what I'm saying? And you see that, and I don't know if it's an artifact of Gus being a lawyer, but you can see whether or not it's right or wrong, he has a solid defense for why he did everything he did. That moment when he confronts Lex and owns what he wrote in the letter and stuff, and gives the reason, it's like a lawyer's argument. I'm just like, yeah, Gus is right. I'm sorry, Lex. It's great, and you sell it so well.
Thank you. Well, that's the thing, is that you had to. What's really funny, Tom? You just asked this question, and I think I just figured out the answer to your question. It was, we were all basically given these easy breezy characters who just show up, right? Really, if you really think about it. But, it wasn't, the complexity actually came in the opinions we had formed about the characters we were dealing with. That's where the complexity really is that my judgment of Lex, my judgment of Ben's character, Joel, my judgment of Steve's character, Kobe, that's where the complexity is. It's because in this weird way, we reflect one another. So sometimes I'm looking at this character with this hard judgment, but you can find those same characteristics in me. And that was one thing that really woke me up when we were doing the job. So my opinion of Lex, as you were saying in regard to that letter, I really looked at Lex as someone who was, the typical addict who was constantly constantly blaming others for his misfortune.
Yeah, and that comes through really well in that scene where Gus didn't want to tell him. Who would? But when it comes down to it, he also didn't want to have to write that letter, but he had to. And I see what you're saying, which is these characters all wanted to just be easy, right? They were going for a fun time and a vacation, and events did not cooperate, and it brings out the complexity in them.
Exactly. They showed up for Hangover and got stuck with Deliverance.
Yes. Well, and to that effect, one thing that's extraordinarily powerful in the direction side of things is the use of inherently disturbing images just to take you, just to put you off kilter going forward. Like, for example, I don't know if this, I'm only 4 episodes in. I don't know if this ever pays off anywhere, but just encountering that bizarre shrine tree with its inherently, hypodermic needles all over it and pictures of people. Like, I don't know what that thing was, but I know that the moment I saw it, I was uncomfortable, and that stayed with me, and it colored all of the interactions going forward. I don't know that I've seen that in a dark comedy like this that affected me as much.
No, that's interesting. You know, it's funny. I really saw that stuff when I was in. We were filming in a town called Loíza, and when we were in Loíza, you know, I wanted to go fishing. They had a little kind of like a ravine running through, and I was trying to get in there and go fishing. And as I started climbing into the woods, I saw the hull of a tree burned out, so that, you know, it was kind of like, it was almost like a standing canoe, but it was a tree, and it was clearly lit on fire and burned out. And it had all these different things in there that I think are more so related to Santeria, because I recognized one of the things that was like Ilegua, you know, I want to say Ogun or something like that, and a lot of little bottles with things in them, and it really stuck with me throughout, to this day. It stuck with me to this very day. And you can't help but ask yourself, as you did, what the hell does this represent? Who is this connected to? What does this mean to them? And what does this ritual, what is this ritual intended to do?
Absolutely.
And it's real. It wasn't made up. I saw that. I saw the real deal.
You had the real experience of encountering that kind of thing in the wild. That's amazing.
It is in Loíza, and the road that it was off of had been cut off by the police for a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so for those, and I'm sure someone out there hasn't been watching, how do you sell to your friends and family, those who know your work or whatever? If you want to get somebody to watch Mad Dogs, what's your elevator pitch? Because I want as many people as possible to watch this.
That's good. That's good. My elevator pitch is, it's, one of the, does it have to be an elevator pitch?
No. Take as long as you want.
It could be the stairs, it could be an escalator, whatever you want.
All right, I'm going to set it up. Look, man, as an actor in today's mainstream world, it's easy to get typecast and asked to play roles that dumb down characters for the sake of appealing to the lowest common denominator. People ask me all the time, why don't they see me in more stuff? Simply because, well, I've always lived my life in a way that I don't have a whole lot of overhead, so I simply don't have to do those jobs. I don't care how arrogant it sounds. That's the fact. You know what I mean? I don't even own a car, And so I've been able and fortunate and blessed in the way in which I've been able to pick and choose my roles. This particular job is the type of job that is an actor's dream, because it allows you to explore so many different aspects of your own talent. But also it's because I don't have to show up and do 22 episodes of something and stick around for 8 months. I'm in 10 episodes and I'm done. So I'm telling you, here's my elevator pitch. It's short, it's to the point, it's sweet, and it involves Ben Chaplin, Michael Imperioli, Steve Zahn, and myself. If that combination doesn't entice you to watch it a little bit, we just may not be your group. It's a piece of. It's a piece
you know what? That's the beginning. That's the alpha and the omega right there, where it's like this is the talent. If that's not your bag, then get bent.
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny because the opportunity to work with Steve Zahn alone was a blessing, and that's the only person that was signed up when I got called in for this job.
Really?
And then Ben Chaplin and Michael Imperioli, Christopher from Sopranos got called. I was like, all right, man, look, dude, who do I got to pay for this? You know what I mean? So I would tell you, just on that alone, you're going to see some good acting, and you're going to have lots of unexpected plot twists, and you're going to see Puerto Rico is a beautiful island.
Yeah, well, and you guys dress it up as Belize extremely well, because it's like every time I see anything that says Belize, knowing that it was shot in Puerto Rico, knowing that that's all set design and stuff, it's like, man, it's an exquisite production. It's so easy to lose yourself.
I
and believe you're
forgot
there.
it was in Puerto Rico, even though you told us last time you were on the show, Romany, and I still was like convinced, like, oh, right, I guess they were in Belize.
Yeah.
No, we cheated a little bit, and what I mean by that is a lot of the pickups and a lot of the landscaping that you see and a lot of the exteriors that you see are actually Belize. Went over there and shot a lot of exteriors and pickup to make sure that we got those aesthetics.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
It's utterly fantastic, and we can't thank you enough for joining us. We'll certainly spread the word, enjoying every second of it. Romany, is there anything you want us to plug for you besides Mad Dogs?
All I can say is thank you. Really, Tom, Brian, just thank you guys for having me on. I still chop it up, online with the Diamond Club. Like,
heck yeah.
Up until like yesterday, you know what I'm saying? So just thank you. And if I were to plug anything else, I would just say, I voiced some opinions about just about life and culture in the United States on an interview called The Breakfast Club. On a show called The Breakfast Club, and if you get a chance, go out there and take a look at it. I kind of more so speak on and expose how I believe, we, as a society are being misled by a lot of mainstream narratives and how we actually confuse them for real life. We allow these narratives to inform our real lives. There it is right there. And, look, I'm not saying that I'm 100% on, but I do believe it's worthwhile. And lastly, I've gotten to the point to where I'm a little frustrated with social media because of the fact that I work so hard to get people to follow me, and then I'm either censored or marginalized, having my posts taken down, that kind of thing. If you'd like to mess with me directly, just go to RomanyMalco.com.
Get on that email list.
That's how, exactly. Yeah. Just go to RomanyMalco.com, jump in. I invite people to premieres. I just recently did. I invite people to meet and greets. I give away T-shirts like crazy. The whole deal. I'm actually legitimately interactive. Okay. So
no, I believe it. And I don't want to out you, but it's like you definitely, let me put it this way. Your cohort, Tijuana Jackson, seems to have given out his personal cell phone, and it seems like a lot of people call and they actually get Tijuana Jackson on the line, and that takes a level of commitment to the fans that's truly extraordinary.
No, thank you very much. And but I really believe ultimately that's what we are here for. If we can, however skewed our insight, if we can share insight that is not harmful, if we can share insight that actually leads a person into the direction of just actually examining themselves a little deeper, I think that's what there's no harm in that. So that's what I'm here for, at least. And if you call TJ and and he picks up the phone, be prepared for an earful.
Hey, speaking of which, if you run into Tijuana Jackson anytime soon, tell him that he needs to appear on Night Attack. We would love to see him again.
I'm going to let TJ know that he's been busy working on a movie, and hopefully we're right around the corner.
Right on.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Romany, for joining us. We'll let you go, but dude, you're the best. Your performance is exquisite, man.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Brian. Y'all take it easy.
Thanks, Romany. Take care.
Oh,
I love that he's owning his own website and being like, you know what, social media, that's owned by somebody else. They can tell you what to say. They could shut you down. Just talk to me direct. I hope things swing back that way.
Heck yes. Just watching a show we like, calling up one of the main characters, as one does.
Yeah.
It's
right?
just normal life.
So now joining us from The Expanse, honestly, I should hit up Ty Frank and see if we can get him and Daniel Abraham to come on and talk. They're the writers of the books, and we've had them on Sword and Laser before.
Well, let's make that happen. I would be fascinated to know what it's like.
Because this show is hot.
It's great. It's great. The Expanse is really killing it, and it's so. And I mean this in a good way. It's taking me a while to warm up to the characters because, as I mentioned last week, the real stars of the show are Earth, Mars, and the Belt. It's this Cold War faction, and in some degree, the characters are kind of chess pieces being moved around. But I am loving the attention to detail put into each of these worlds. I believe them. I believe they're independent cultures. I believe that there's a big, interesting story behind it. I believe there's a simmering rage among some disenfranchised peoples that would cause them to react very, very big. I loved, as I got caught up, I loved seeing the reveal of who the butcher of, I forget where was, and
Anderson Station.
Yes. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Painful, and all told in a very believable format. The world is becoming increasingly real to me, and the more that happens, the more I'm able to buy and have predictions about who's going to do and say what.
I really, really am glad to hear that, because it's one of those situations, and I keep saying this over and over, I know, where I know the book so well, and I love the book so well, and I've really paid close attention to these characters and how they develop, that it's hard for me not to see them already and go, that's right. Even more so than Game of Thrones. I mean, I'd read Song of Ice and Fire, but I hadn't studied those characters so closely and gotten to know them so well. So it's sometimes hard for me to notice this. And therefore, when the show starts to slow down, as I feel like it did episodes 5 and 6, I worry that people won't hang in there, because I'm like, well, I know why they're slowing down. I know what's coming next, and I know that we have to do this to get there. And so I feel like that world that I kind of take for granted, the Belters and the OPA and Mars, is working the way it should to encompass you and go, okay, yeah, there may not be a lot happening in this particular episode, but you're getting to meet the Butcher of Anderson Station. Is that right? I might be wrong about Anderson Station now that I'm thinking about it, but
regardless,
but you're getting filled up with this world, and so even if it's slower, you may not mind.
Yeah, 100%. And one of my beefs oftentimes with science fiction is that everything's too clean, and they do a really good job of providing believable grit in all of this, and practical, surprising grit. It's not just, Battlestar Galactica did a really good job of everything's filthy, and they use ballistics and nukes and, very familiar 20th century weapons. And they created a logical conceit why you would have artifacts left over from U-boats, essentially, still alive and well. They're doing a very different game, but it's so smartly played. I would love it if you would reach out to the authors. It would be so great to pick their minds on how much they had to do with the development.
I just emailed Ty.
Oh, that's great.
If you heard tappity tappity tap in the back, that's what I was doing. Yeah, the Butcher of Station.
I believe it's Tycho.
He's Fred Anderson, right? The Butcher of Anderson Station. Yeah, no, that's the name of the book. Tycho Station is the station
is where he is now.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's where they are now.
Man, I don't know what to say. The good news is now we're caught up, and week over week we could talk about particular episodes, but it's difficult for me to remember what happened when in a straight run through. Can you clarify one thing? There's this moment when an uncle and his nephew are scavenging, and they get harassed by some Martians. And then there's this moment he throws his nephew in the airlock and clearly is going on some kind of suicide-y FU to the Martians mission, flinging rocks around. Did that get resolved and I missed it somehow, or is that the setup that's carrying over?
I don't remember whether that was even in the books, and if it was, I'm not clear on it. But the effect of that is shown in the most recent episode 7, where they talk about how an OPA ship was blown up by the Martians, by Mars, and that's causing the riots to increase in the belt. And so that instability is one of the things that allows Holden and them to convince that incoming ship from Mars that, yes, we're out here doing black ops because, things are pretty bad out here right now.
Right.
Which,
by the way, I thought was a
we're
great...
We're going to get closure on the boy who was let floating? I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, the whole conceit of, the donkey balls gambit, I enjoyed quite a bit. I thought it was great.
That episode was written by James S.A. Corey.
That's
Daniel
awesome.
And Ty wrote that episode. So that dialogue is coming right out of the creators of those characters' heads.
It was great. It had the right amount of charming and the right amount of tension. It was a good noose tightening moment.
Alex, I said this on Twitter about Amos, but it was true of Alex too. Alex and Amos had the most true to the book moments for those characters that I have seen so far in this series. And Amos in particularly, I feel like we got to finally meet for real. Like he'd been presented as a tough guy, and presented as a calm tough guy, but in that moment where he is talking through the lock with a character that's not in the books, frankly, we see the real Amos, which is like, oh no, I'm from Baltimore and I have a vicious past and I have no illusions about who I am and how bad I am. But I know what I'm good for and this is it. And you'll die and it's nothing personal. Sorry, dude.
Although, who's to say in a world where we could see the most popular character on The Walking Dead not be one from the comic book, I love this new set of rules where it's like, hey man, anyone can come and go. It's like, it doesn't matter if you read the source material.
Oh, you mean the guy with the contact lens?
Yeah, correct. And it's like, I kind of like him in that Weasley honest way where he's like, yeah, I'm a spy. Here's what I know. Here's what I don't know. Here's the thing. And then also...
it's the best spy move ever, right? To be like, okay, let me just put everything that, I'll hold something back. Important, but I'll put everything else on the table because why wouldn't I, try to make you think I'm telling you everything?
Yeah, can't say enough good stuff. Totally on board for all of it. I do understand what you were talking about the last couple episodes being slower. Certainly Bonnie has faded. She's tried twice to watch episode 5 and fallen asleep both times. Whereas I knew to play Hearthstone while I was watching. So I stayed awake, but I'm totally enjoying it.
Well, and there are more and more challenges, and that's one of the reasons I love getting the season pass. In this case, I'm getting it from iTunes because you get those behind the scenes interviews, and there's more stuff in there about the things that they have to do to change the story and make it work, because you can have these long descriptions of orbital mechanics. And honestly, the books don't have a lot of science. It's not like a Neil Stephenson type of thing.
Right.
But you can have a long description of why a ship has to take this long to go from here to there and how it's going to take that long, and then just skip over the time in ways that you can't. And one of those great things that they do is instead of Holden sort of talking over long periods to let out the truth about his background, having Christian Avasarala visit his mother was just a revelation.
It was great.
I'm like, oh my God, I get to see his mom and hear about his background. And they tweaked Holden's backstory a little bit to speed up his motivations in a way, because I don't think they were as politically active as they make it seem in the TV show. Well, but it's such a good interaction between those two women.
I do love the fact that they took some traditionally fairly hard science fiction concepts, the idea of Uber families, with multiple parents and so on, and just sort of bring it out as just a matter of fact thing without making it highly controversial.
Yeah, it's a throwaway. It's
yeah.
Like, well, you're in this kind of family, so your dynamic's supposed to be like this. Like, yeah. Well, yeah, sort of.
Exactly. No, and the tension, it's wonderful. I'm very intrigued by it. Forgive me, I don't know her name, but the grandmother from Earth,
Christian
yes.
Avasarala.
I'm very intrigued, and I still don't know how to feel about her. Whether she's a demon or just somebody doing the best with what she's got right now. It's interesting.
You should definitely read the books eventually, because she curses a lot more in the books, and it's endearing.
Ha! That's great. Well, regardless, thumbs up across the board on all that.
All right, we're going to talk about the Magicians episode 1, which, Brian, I know you haven't watched.
No, that's how I'll bow out here. You gentlemen talk about it.
Bryce Castillo has watched it.
Yeah.
And it's another example where you're going to hear me go on and on about how, well, I read the book and this and that. And it's very similar to The Expanse in that I feel like they're doing a good job changing things that they need to in order to make it a television story, but doing a good job of capturing the spirit. Bryce, what did you think of it?
I had a really interesting I don't know. I felt a little conflicted at the end because I do like the premise, right, of a Harry Potter-esque magical society somehow integrated in with the real world. But I think aesthetically it didn't always seem to gel. I thought some parts of it wanted to be very twee and like old school and very much like Harry Potter, and then the sort of clash with like dubstep and classic high school tropes, and also they're on college, whatever, in college. But I do think there is a lot of interesting setups in this first episode. You have the blonde girl who's got a thing going on with her family and her brother. Of course, the main character, Quentin, who has kind of got this druggy thing going on, but also apparently has magical powers. The guy and the girlfriend who kind of appear out of nowhere and just decide to be best friends. And then I think the most interesting is the childhood friend. I don't remember her name. Who like fails the exam and then is ushered into the sort of black market of wizards.
Julia.
I think that's probably the most interesting part for me, of someone who like has found the edge of magical and non-magical and is in equally a rebellious universe. I think I'm excited to see where that goes.
It's a rough thing to do, because what I think they're trying to do with that style is reflect the way a university, especially an old university, and Breakbills is an extremely old university, can have those old-fashioned feels and that tweedy feel, and yet the students are out there listening to modern music and dressing and kind of mixed clothing sometimes. So it's unfortunate that that's not playing off the way it should for you. But I feel like I
understand it though.
What's that?
I understand the trying to make it work.
Yeah,
it's just
not working for you.
It doesn't totally gel.
Yeah,
but that's something that could be fixed with time.
And I feel like some of these characters are very quickly introduced in this first episode. And again, in a book, you can take a lot more time to describe a person and get to know them. And so they kind of have to throw stuff at you. But what we're headed for, and this is a divisive book. A lot of people who read it in Sword and Laser hated it because of Quentin. This is a book about disaffected youth who have more power than they know what to do with. And that is pointed to in this first episode, I think.
Yeah, definitely with Quentin and between the setup of him with the mental hospital and having depressive sorts of traits or rather some sort of depressive state, and then him being like needing to be pushed into going to an exam or an interview to go to Yale and what is it, philosophy or something. I do think that's a pretty good theme, but there's this weird thing of everyone else knows what's going on except Quentin and kind of Julia. But even then, by the end of the episode, Julia has kind of figured some stuff out. And that took me out a little bit because it like you were saying, there's only so much time. It was very much just like, here's a character. They know what's going on. You'll figure it out. But I think it sets up so many good things, and that's how you have to do it, even with the whole hour of just kind of rushing it a little bit. But I am intrigued to see where all of these intersections come. There's got to be maybe not a single intersecting thread, and you don't have to say because you've read the books, but I'd like to see where some of these longer arcs intersect.
Yeah, and episode 2 will start to take us into Breakbills, and there'll be less of this like, what? There's a magical world. Well, I'm assuming we'll leave that behind as the books do, and get us more into the world. Which leads me to the last question I'm curious about. What did you think of this idea of Fillory, which is sort of a alternative Narnia?
Yeah, that was interesting because you get the inkling that maybe it's real, but then you get the feeling that it could just be all in Quentin's head and all a dream, because I mean it's exactly how he is, we assume, imagining the girl of the Fillory series. But it's integrating with his real life, and there are all these moments and objects. It'll be interesting to see if they flesh out fillery more, because most of what you get is, hey, this is not Narnia, but it's Narnia, and it's a book, and some kids have read it, but not a lot of kids have read it. But I think the themes of whatever fillery is supposed to represent and express in this world, I didn't take those away as much. So maybe we'll see more about that. I think it would be really an interesting wrinkle to have a storybook, a children's storybook, turn out to actually be real. I do think that's good.
Well, and one of the things that the book is trying to do is show like the idea that what if magic was real? What if, and they're teasing around, as you say, with this idea of like, what if the children's book was real? What if all these things were real and real teenagers, real, young adults, in this case, they're grad school, I guess, in the TV series, actually dealt with them? How would they actually really react? Versus like this, magical land of wonder that we always hear about. Like, what would cynical, depressed, sexually overactive kids do if that became something that, they're able to cast magic and dark spells, and we've already started to see a little bit in that first episode, which is they're going to use it for selfish reasons and maybe not in the right way and unleash a man with moths for a head into a classroom.
Yeah. That'll be interesting to see how it runs out. Speaking of sexual encounters, whiplash moment of the episode is when the roommate is talking to just a random girl in class. After we've spent like the scene with Quentin, it kind of just like scuts over to the roommate, and he's like playing it very cool and charismatic, and then it just cuts to them doing the deed and floating. It happened, and my reaction was, "Why is this happening right
college?"
Not exactly,
no,
but just total whiplash in that moment. That's only I think the weird set of pacing that.
Yeah, no, I agree. You're supposed to get that, like, oh, Penny's a hot commodity and he can turn a girl's head quick, but it's real quick.
It's very quick.
Yeah, super quick. They tried to pack a lot into this episode.
But I'll watch episode 2.
All right, me too. And I also already watched episode 2 of Justified. Brian?
Yeah,
Brian,
dude.
wake up.
Remind me of what I missed. By the way, I got a lot of really important emails banged out during that. Thank you.
Awesome. Anytime we could help.
So I'm waiting for you to catch up. I got like 4 or 5 episodes in. I remember the beginning of Justified being very, very procedural, very, very monster of the week. And I'm assuming the second episode was how I remembered it?
Yeah, this is Riverbrook. And it's written by Graham Yost, the same person who wrote the pilot. And it is the first of our procedural episodes. So we have the 2 characters who are in a prison band. So they're inmates who have to dress up in prison-y clothes to go out and play for what is never really made clear to me. A group of, maybe it's a fundraiser for the prison. I have no idea. It's some kind of event. They're guarded. But because they're on good behavior, they're allowed to play this prison band. And then, of course, 2 of them use it as an opportunity to escape. One of them only had 3 months left on his sentence. So there's your mystery. Why did he try to escape? He turns against the other guy who escaped and runs him off. And then he, of course, runs into our main character, Marshall Givens, who is sent to bring him back. And we get the girl from True Blood as the love interest, and this mystery about where the money was that he had hidden, and the kind of a limp reason for him to break out with 3 months left on his sentence, which was, at first he thought it was to make sure he found the money before his ex did, but really it was because he loved his ex and missed her. And it's a fine episode. The one thing that this episode convinced me of is that even though I am holding this to a very harsh set of judgment, I really love the dialogue. I really love the way these characters talk. It's just fun to listen to.
Yeah, I do remember it being a very believable atmosphere, and I think I was initially disappointed because Walton Goggins isn't even in this second episode, right?
He's in at the very beginning. We find out for sure he's alive, and he has a little conversation with Givens about how he's found God.
Yeah. I have a little bit of Poochie syndrome where every time Walton Goggins isn't on screen, I want the characters to look around and say, "Where's Walton Goggins?"
Yeah, and I have no idea that I mean, obviously he's integral because they worked in the mines together and that was all set up. But it is very much a like, hey, we're going to check in on Boyd's story for you. But the rest of this episode's not about Boyd.
Yes. Agreed. So Boyd is his name. I should stop calling him Walton Goggins.
Yeah, or Shane. Don't call him Shane.
I'm going to call him Shane. Old Shane Goggins.
Old Shane Boydgins.
Shane Van Dam.
Yeah, so anyway, episode 2 of Justified certainly has not turned me off of Justified.
I will try to join in from episode 3. I think I got up to episode 5 before, but regardless, once we're in new territory for me, I will be lockstep with you as we descend into the badness of getting addicted to a new heroine for you entertainment.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I am paying off. I'm sorry. I resisted this because same network, same general type of show, bunch of guys being tough lawmen, great. But everyone said, no, but it's really good. And 2 episodes in, I could say it definitely has not proven to be bad.
Which, by the way, is not meant as an insult. It's just saying
No.
we have a basement. We have a bottom floor established. Yeah. It only gets better from here.
Speaking of, they tear up a lot of basements in episode 2. So there you go.
That's why I used that metaphor, because I totally remembered it from 4 years ago when I watched it.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, well, normally that's it. We just we finish our regular Spoilerin time and we're done. But because we wanted to make sure Romany Malco got on at the top of the show, we held our Triage segment where we read some emails from you guys until the end of the show. Shall I start with this one, Brian?
Indeed, you shall, sir.
So this is Tim from last week. Who says, "Hi, Brian and Tom. I'm responding to your question from my previous email."
Okay.
Which is the way I read his email last week. I promise I won't continue like that. Tim said, "Your theory that I was under 18 when episode 1 came is technically true. I was a few months away from being 18 when it was released. I have a different theory for you. I was born after Empire was released. As a result, I grew up on the original trilogy, but it was Return of the Jedi that was my favorite movie as a child. I've noticed a trend that people who liked Return of the Jedi the best as kids tend to like the prequels more. Not sure why this is, but certainly there are a lot of other Star Wars fans out there like me. With a different Star Wars movie having been released every decade since the 70s, I think it means a different thing to a lot of different people, which to me is what is to be celebrated of the movies, not bashed. P.S. Thanks, Tom, for the wonderful impersonation. LOL.
Also, Robert chimed in saying this is in response to Brian's answer to Tim's email about always knocking the Star Wars prequel. I understand Brian's response. Please believe, but I'm 45. I've seen New Hope in a drive-in movie with my father when I was 7, which was the only movie he took me before he passed away 3 years later. And I liked the prequels. Did I like them as much as the originals? No, of course not. But to me, they were not as bad as everyone says they are. We all have opinions about the prequels, and they all are valid. But please don't think that those of us who have seen them when they first came out hate them or dislike them as much as y'all do. And by the way, I'll take the blame on this. Me, he's talking about. Basically, Brian implied that the only reason Tim likes it was because he has possibly seen them before the originals. I didn't, and I enjoyed them for what they were. Thanks for the awesome shows, guys. Thank you, Robert.
Well, now I'm just going to throw my own personal examples out of here because they fit so nicely with these. It doesn't prove anything, doesn't prove anybody wrong or right. But my wife, Eileen, who works for YouTube, actually says Return of the Jedi was her favorite. She was very young when she went to see Empire, and it scared her a little bit. And she loved the Ewoks, and she's a little bit younger than me. So she liked the prequels less than me. So she is a counterexample to Tim. And again, just one person, so it doesn't prove Tim wrong. But it's interesting, like there's one person I know who Return of the Jedi is their favorite and definitely didn't like the prequels. At the same time, I'm like right in lockstep with Robert from Oklahoma. I went to see Star Wars for the first time at a drive-in theater. I'm the same age as Robert, and I don't think I like the prequels as much as Robert did, but I definitely like them more than Brian did. So I don't know what that says.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, regardless, thank you for all your emails. Make sure to hit us up at cordkillers@gmail.com. Man, we did it. We spoiled all the movies. They're all ruined.
Yeah, that's it. Nothing left to spoil. I guess we'll just have to go to space.
Special thanks to Romany Malco for being wonderful.
Yeah, huge ups.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.